Welcome everyone. Thank you for coming to our organisation support program information session. This is actually the third information session so far that we've run, and this is about SSO's game plan. So before we start, we do have a lot of people on the call today. So just looking at this this cover slide, what we're asking people to do, if you don't mind, is we've disabled the raising your hand and reacting functions that you might usually see in Teams, and also people's cameras and microphones. But we're we welcome people asking questions in the chat. And I think when we get to the end, we might also have some time for people to raise their hands. So we do have a lot of people though, so we'll run through this way today. So before I start, I just want to acknowledge and celebrate the traditional custodians of the lands and waters of New South Wales, where we work, live and play. I'm coming today from the beautiful Blue Mountains, which is Gundungurra and Darug land. And I just want to pay my respects to elders past and present, and acknowledge, extend that to any Aboriginal people who might be here today. So today, the information session is about the launch of Game Plan for New South Wales State Sporting Organisations. And we want to acknowledge and thank Steve Marcus, who's the Senior Advisor with the Australian Sports Commission. Steve will be presenting today and introducing Game Plan for New South Wales SSOs and outline how it will benefit us all in New South Wales by using Game Plan. I've had a look at a presentation Steve did recently for national sporting organisations, and also seen Game Plan for clubs, and it's very, very impressive. So I think it's going to benefit us all. And also, I guess, to remind people that there is a requirement of funding under the organisation support program in this financial year, is that everyone does have to complete the Australian Sport Commission's Sport Governance Standards Survey by the 1st of June. And we actually have to do it through Game Plan platform. So not only is it going to benefit people, but it's actually a requirement of funding. This is very new to New South Wales SSOs. People would have been familiar with the SSO Organisational Health Survey that Jeffrey's been responsible for, that we've been running for the last 5 years. So this is a change for us. And I think it is all part of the new funding, the increased funding for the organisation support program. And I might come back to this if we've got time at the end, but this is just giving you an update on some key dates. So at the moment, we're in a process of consultation about the next stage of OSP. There's a forum actually on Thursday this week for categories 1 to 3, a forum for categories 4 to 6 on Thursday next week. Following on from Steve's webinar, we're actually having an information session on the sports governance standards on Wednesday, the 27th of March. So this is a flow on from what Steve will be presenting today about Game Plan. You would have actually, invitations to that information session went out yesterday. And there's some reporting timelines as well, which we're in the process of at the moment. We might come back to that if we've got some time at the end, and then we'll come back to this too, just some contacts in the Office of Sport support for SSOs through the organisation support program process. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now and hand over to Steve.
Thanks, Andrew, and thanks everyone for joining us this afternoon. Appreciate you taking the time out. As Andrew mentioned, the game plans really evolved over the last few years and become really quite important in terms of capability building across organisations. And the work that we've done as a product now means that the capability building process in a common platform of Game Plan is now available at club level, which was launched in December 2020, and is now available at state and national sporting organisation level as well, which then brings everything together and also connects the supports across the various levels of government as well, local, state, and federal government. So it really is what we understand to be a world first in terms of a single platform that's focused on capability building for sport and connects those key stakeholders together. I'll share my screen. I've got some slides to go through today. I'm going to give you an overview of the system from a peak body perspective, and I'm also going to give you some insights, some further insights into the club platform as well, so that you can see not only how you can support your own organisation's capability building, but also how you can see and track the progress of your club stakeholder network as well. So Game Plan is built around capability assessments. So they're sector-wide capability assessment content. It can be tailored and filtered to support state sporting organisations and clubs, so that we can get down to really specific information and make sure that we're building capabilities that are not only sector-wide but also sport-specific where we can as well. They then lead into the development of action plans. So once you've completed an assessment, taking a simple action plan to support the growth and in maturity and the evolution of practices is really important. It's able to be data driven and based off their own self-assessments, able to be able to sort of identify those areas that need the most support. We're able to connect organisations to resources that are relevant to them to support their plans. So we have some sport-specific resources that are able to be then connected. We have some state-specific resources. We also have resources that are identified to target specific maturity levels, so they're most appropriate depending on where you're at in terms of your organisation assessments and reports there. That library includes policy releases, general resources, e-learning, webinars, and podcasts where they're available. The final part of that puzzle is the data and reporting that's available through Game Plan. So you're able to use that to analyse your current results, the progress of your plans, and also the impact thereof. So it's then able to be filtered down so that you can see the relevant information that's for you and can connect to those people that are required for that support as well. Quick overview for where we're at with clubs. So we've now got over 4,000 clubs registered in Game Plan. So as I mentioned, launched back in 2020. Those 4,000 clubs have gone and found their way into Game Plan through a number of different channels. But we're now in a more targeted phase where there's going to be a lot more promotion and awareness of Game Plan due to the fact that we're able to now connect directly to everyone in the sector. It does tailor itself to the club user, which is great. So setting their priorities then allows them to focus in on the areas that are most meaningful for them at the time and delivers the content in the right way. The capability building focus, so it's not compliance. So it's all around the capability building. The modules themselves and the responses given are designed to identify where practices are not in place, and then through a maturity scale, good, better, best practice, essentially. So being able to help people build as they go. And it's also able to be customized to sport. So there's currently 24 NSOs that have done some customization in Game Plan. That ranges from logos to sport-specific images, and in some cases, questions in modules and specific modules in two sports cases, in women and girls in football and women in golf. For peak bodies, we took that platform and we've fast-tracked the evolution of that. And in April last year, we launched Game Plan for NSOs and NSODs, our funded NSOs and NSODs, because they had the existing process of the sports governance standards. So that was previously done in Excel spreadsheets, a lot of back and forth and file sharing and so on, and which then required a whole lot of restricted access and passwords and so on. So bringing that forward into Game Plan allowed us to digitize that process. The feedback from our NSO CEOs and boards that interacted with Game Plan was overwhelmingly positive. They said that was very clearly a step forward, simple, intuitive, and the fact that we're able to, say, automate some of the processes in there was really helpful for them. Following on from that, we launched the finance module. So it says there was scheduled for deployment. I'll update that slide. That's out. That did go out in October 2023, and organisations have been able to go in and assess their capabilities in the finance reporting policies, practices, and procedures, which is terrific. And those sports and organisations are on their way to building their action plans in that space as well. So because we've been able to do that, we're then able to filter down and launch into state and territory specific jurisdictions and bring it to life in New South Wales as well. Capability assessments and the measures are different to performance. So we're not measuring dollars and cents in financials, we're measuring policies, procedures, and practices. We're not measuring in raw specific, participation numbers and progression there, but we are able to measure in the delivery of participation and the maturity thereof. Same with governance and so on. All of these things, the performance measures are the outcomes of being able to apply that capability. Because the third piece of the puzzle is capacity. You may have the capability to do something, but you may not have the capacity to necessarily deliver on that. And that's going to impact on your performance measures at the same time. However, there'll always be the ongoing links. They are intrinsically tied because that's where reporting tends to cross over in essence, and the reporting requirements across sports organisations at every level, we all agree, and we're not oblivious to this, is we get asked similar questions or the same questions or for the same kind of data and information, usually multiple times a year from multiple different sources. The beauty of Game Plan is we're able to actually start to bring some of that together so that it's not having to be asked multiple times, and we can connect the right people into the data for those reporting purposes. It's a really good step forward for the sector. And the future module development pathway, there are a couple of key strategies that are out at the moment and have been launched more recently. So the HP 2032 Plus, or also the Win Well strategy, and Play Well, which is Australia's first participation strategy, which some of you may have had some interaction with in the design and development of that. On top of that, there's also a little bit of sector demand around what's driving our pathway, and we're aligning where we possibly can the modules across levels in national, state and club level modules, which gives everyone the opportunity to take a whole of sport approach to identifying and analysing the information and seeing where there's the opportunities for the whole sport to move in a particular direction, which then helps pool resources and create some efficiencies in that space there as well. For peak bodies, so I'll take you through now the system of what it looks like. I have some screenshots in here. So it's a very, very similar look and feel between our peak body environment and our club environment. So in here, we can see some screenshots in here. So once you've signed in, you can see assessments, plan and monitor, and so on and so on. So the ribbon across the top is your navigator, and the news and updates page there will give you some insights as to what's going on. First point of contact is usually the assessment modules. You can see some examples of widgets here, and the widgets where the assessment hasn't been taken. You can see the governance one there, so status not completed, and the finance one, which has been completed, will give you the information around when it was taken, who took it, and your ability to either view the answers or progress to the plan. Down the bottom of the left-hand side, you can see some examples of the questions and the kind of responses that are in. These are examples from the finance module, where you can see the scaling of what is good, better, best practice, or not in place in essence for some of those things. So it's a matter of selecting the most appropriate response, and it's a very similar format across all of those modules. Once you've completed that and progressing to the plan, we've built a really simple activity-based planning process. So you can select a section, so you can focus in on the area of greatest need based on the results and the responses of what you've seen. So what you've put in, you'll see in the reports where that section is that needs the most attention, or the ability to amplify your successes already. You can build your activities in this space, assigning due dates, responsible people, and then come back in and track your progress throughout the year. As I mentioned, we're able to link the resources So the governance module and the finance module have specific resources in there for organisations to be able to go that, and they're targeted at peak body level. So you can see there's some examples, the general forms and templates, the e-learning podcasts and webinar examples are where they are present and where we've been given access to those. We're able to put those links. All of the resources are links. So if you have sport-specific resources or the Office of Sport wants to release resources out to all of you at the same time, we're able to grab those links and put those in game plan, and you'll have access to all of those. It kind of starts to remove the need for email out type processes and hoping that your database is up to date and correct, and also helps consolidate where some of the resources are able to be found and utilised, which is really quite important. And just a couple of things around some of the data. So this is around supporting a decision making. The left-hand graph is a visual of the governance report. So we're able to see year-on-year results and track the trends in that space at an organisation level. So you see that at organisation level, and down the bottom there you can see expected scores versus actual scores, and the light greens are where there was a gap between the actual and the expected. Similarly, you can then start to say, okay, well, for my sport, how does that look like at club level? And like I mentioned, the governance report from an organisation perspective into the governance maturity of clubs. Have we got some resources that we can actually share and share downwards into our stakeholder network there, and really highlight the opportunities to have an impact on the areas that you're already doing well. So it's a really good step forward there from a peak body perspective. Going to lean into now the same sort of run through with the club environment and just show you the similarities. So you can see there, it looks very, very similar in the differences and where you can see some of the sport customization. This is an example of a netball club. So we have a netball logo at the top there, and you can see some netball images through that banner. So that's where I say some sport specific customization is available to you and we can deliver on that. And it's really important to then help create that connection between users so that they feel like it's a tool for them and a common tool across their sport, and it's relevant and they can connect to the information that's in there. We are capturing this information, and I've updated some of these things. So we've hit just over 4,000 clubs in there. We're collecting workforce information and member and participant profile information. If you had all of your clubs in there and we saw all of their member and participant profile and the workforce profile, you get a really quick snapshot of how you're tracking from a membership and participation profile, but also how many committee and admin people are across your sport, how many coaches, officials and volunteers. For some sports, you'll have a system that will do that for you, and we'll continue to work through how we can look to integrate some of that from a reporting point of view. But for other sports, we know that sometimes this information is actually incredibly difficult to get your hands on because you may not necessarily have a system, and Game Plan can start to feed you some of that information on what's coming through from the clubs. So how we implement this at club level can also become incredibly beneficial at peak body level as well. So of those 4,000 clubs, there's currently over 618,000 participants registered, nearly 57,000 committee or admin people, 140 coaches, so on and so on. You can see some of that information there, and that can be broken down by sport, by state, and then also down into local government level, so you can see exactly which communities are performing at different rates or who's contributing to the sport at that point in time as well. The tailoring of the system for the club. So here you can see the 12 modules that are common for every club in Game Plan. So they're able to prioritize these in a simple drag and drop process. Top left is the most important, bottom right is the least important to them at that particular moment in time. That will change. Their priorities will change over time. It will change when there's a changeover of committee and so on. But that then helps start to tailor what the system does at club level at that point in time. So the question then starts to come, well, as you see that data, and in a second I'll show you some of the information that's coming through from a national and a New South Wales perspective from a priorities process. But as you start to see that, if you have a different set of priorities as a sport, the question then starts to come around, how are you influencing and collaborating with your stakeholders? How are you using information that they're actually telling you is the most important based on their own capability building versus where you'd like them to spend some additional time to help meet a strategy or support an initiative and program that you may be rolling out at the time, and work through that. So here's some of that data. On the left-hand side here, this is the most commonly selected as the #1 priority across all sports nationally. So participation is selected #1 37% of the time. And then we've got values and behaviours, governance, safeguarding, and infrastructure. If I just flick back to the previous slide, you'll see some modules here with an asterisk next to them. Previously, they were called foundation modules and weren't able to be prioritised. We just had them in there and said everyone should do these. We never then able to understand how important they were for clubs or whether they were doing them just because we told them that they were foundation modules and super important. Now that we've put that in there, we're starting to see the change in trends across the prioritisation, and some of those foundation modules are finding themselves in the priority list. So governance, for example, is now finding its way in. Safeguarding is finding its way in as most selected #1. And on the right-hand side, you can see, well, not #1, but top 5, still very important. You can see that they're starting from a different base here. So top 5 nationally, participation is selected 87% of the time in the top 5. Values and behaviours, infrastructure, stakeholder alignment, DEI. And then the New South Wales specific, you can see there's only a slight difference as we get down to priority 4, where technology and digital's found its way into the top 5 in New South Wales. I think you're the only state in the country that has that in their top 5. But fantastic that that's going to help drive sports forward in a modern way, which is terrific. And we see the change over there with stakeholder alignment dropping to #5. So if you see that, and if you've heard that and you think, oh, actually, I probably didn't expect that, or yep, that was exactly what I was thinking. If we get time and you want to talk about any of that information, save that for the end or chuck a comment in the chat and we'll circle back to that. Based on those priorities, this is where we see the top priority modules, the medium priority modules, low priority modules in groups of 4. So it's a lot easier for people to go in and focus their time in those spaces that are the highest priority for them. The longest the module will take is roughly around 15 minutes. We've tried to keep it very short and very simple for clubs. Safeguarding is the one that takes the longest, and it's around that 15-minute mark. Governance and finance not too far behind in that space as well. So as we're able to do those things, we keep an eye on just how long it would we anticipate that it would take a club to be able to complete that module, with a view to saying, well, recognizing that they're time poor, this is going to fall in some cases lower on their to-do list. So let's make sure that it's simple and easy enough for them to come in and interact, to give everyone the ideas around how best to support them in their journey there. Same kind of action planning process, but you can see the assessment modules, once they're completed, come into a different table. So every module that's completed there, you're able to view a response and a maturity and start their plans, but the same kind of format from an activity-based action plan there, as same as what you will experience in your portal there as well. Resources the same. So you can see the 12 modules. You click on any of those and it opens up into these pages. What we've also done, and it was just last week, so it was really good timing, is we've actually released the view of all of these resources in your portal. So you don't need to go and create a club profile to see these resources. We've created a link to these. You're able to see these directly, so you know exactly what resources are in Gameland to support your clubs. So when you're having that conversation, you can see that. What you might actually find is some of those resources can be incredibly helpful for you too. Some of them are really, really helpful at every level of the sector as well. I'll just pause for a second because I know that we've got a question in the chat. Is the system driven by the NSO initially to provide info on SSO, then affiliated clubs? Or can the SSO start encouraging their affiliated clubs to belong? SSO downwards is run solely in a voluntary capacity. So, Elizabeth, what I would say is we know that SSOs largely have the relationship with clubs. You don't need to wait for your NSO to do anything. They're largely removed and would probably come to you in the way that the hierarchy would work in terms of a federated structure and model. But you're able to go and encourage people to get in on this in-game plan at any point in time, and we'd certainly encourage you to do that and help drive that with your stakeholders, because the more they put in there into game plan, the more you're going to have in terms of information on how best to support them when you can, noting that, like you say, it's a voluntary capacity in most cases, but if you're finding common needs, you're then able to make some decisions around how to support that. Yeah. All right. Some of the data that you'll see, and this is what you'll see as you log in for the first time. You're going to be able to come in and see, and Dave, I'm going to give you the answers to that question very shortly. But as you log in, you're going to see the tabs, and on the reports tab, you're going to be able to see two options: an organisation reports and a club report. So this is the data that comes out of the club reports. So nationally, we can see 4,007 clubs, and you can see the breakdown of where they are. And the dashboard then shows you the modules and the number of completions in those modules. So you'll be able to see where those clear identifiers are and the indicators are when it comes through. Some of the reporting that you get through at state level is around like the workforce roles. So we can see here, and you can see some of the information there around coaches, committees, officials, and some breakdowns in those roles. So this is national data. So 38% of the workforce roles are listed as coaches, 35% are listed as committee, and so on and so on. Similarly, in the membership or participation data roles, 618,000 participants, and you can see the breakdown in terms of age categories there. We can see the male-female split and the memberships by group where we know it. So in those profiles, where there is additional information, really is helpful and supportive to be able to get that. This is New South Wales current module maturity. So this is maturity by module. This is out of the New South Wales clubs that have submitted. Pretty obvious in terms of the color coding here. Green is good, red is bad. We like to keep it pretty simple, but as you can see here, if we look at the areas that we want to celebrate and amplify where we can, 52% of respondents are in excelling when it comes to values and behaviours, which is an amazing place to be. 38% in participation, 35% in tech and dig, 27% governance, and so on and so on. Really great to be able to be in that excelling space. And it's kind of like, how do you maximize that opportunity? Because these organizations right now that have completed that, the capability is showing that they're ready to move forward in those spaces every opportunity that they get. So they're ready to go and build and continue to celebrate that success. On the flip side, the areas that are performing at the lowest stage, strategy roles and responsibilities is the lowest maturity across all sports and all states across the whole country. This is it. So strategy roles and responsibilities in New South Wales, 31% are not in place. And that's either linked to strategic plans or lack of clarity in roles and responsibilities at committee level and at club level, and how to actually implement those and spread those through. That kind of process also links into things like the workforce module, and around how we are identifying, recruiting, attracting volunteers and coaches and officials and so on. But we've got 46% that are either not in place or still developing in a place that has us, as people in sport, we know that that's one of the biggest call outs. How do we get more volunteers? How do we get more people to help? The other part is around the diversity, equity, and inclusion space. So more than 60% are still in that sort of not in place or developing phase. And when we think about the changing face of the communities that we operate in, and the locations, if we're not engaging in some and branching out and developing our maturity in that space, how can we continue to sustain, let alone grow, our participation rates at local level if we don't have the maturity to embrace and invite new people in to our sports across the board? So this is really interesting to have a look at when you're having a look at that in a sport specific way, and being able to sort of lean into what the data is telling you, and how to activate that. You track the trends over time. So here just shows how I can break it down. You can break it down at the next level. So top left is the national trends, but the big one in the middle is New South Wales specific trends over time. And you can see a few little peaks and troughs there. Participation had a good spike and then it's sort of dropped away. Values and behaviours has been on a steady incline. It's starting to level out now. Strategy, roles and responsibilities improved and is starting to drop, so on and so on. You can start to see what that looks like. And then the bottom right-hand side, I've just used Blacktown as an example. You can start to see the difference between their local community and the trends there versus the statewide trends in those modules as well. So really interesting to be able to go through that as you've launched or engaged in a different way to help build capability, provide more resources, launch an initiative or program to drive things forward. Has it had an impact? And you can monitor those spikes or dips in maturity trends over time. So you have all of that in your portal. Slightly different, as I mentioned, is the governance one that I showed earlier on the right-hand side, but on the left, you can see you'll get some data broken down into principles and so on, based on your SGS survey, to help guide some of that from an internal organisation perspective. So I'm just going to pause for a second. I'm going to ask if there's any questions around any of the data or information that was just seen. If you're happy to put a question in the chat or raise your hand if you've got a burning question around any of that data that you've just been able to see there. Oh, terrific. I'll go and we'll jump into the system live, and I can start to show you some of that breakdown. So a couple of things around what comes next. We've developed some marketing and promotion material to support where this is able to be tailored to your sport and things like that, to be able to promote out to your clubs. The same kind of assets and tools, as you can see on the right-hand side here, is around toolkits for local governments, for state and territory sport and rec departments, as well as for sports. But we've got some generic tiles that can be used in social medias. We've got some newsletter type, banner type processes here where you can see one that has been built as a generic, and then we've also got one where you can actually overlay your own images and put your own logos in those spaces to help communicate all of those things. So that's all there, ready for you to go, and we've got access to those, which will also provide a link through Jeffrey as a follow-up to that, not only the slides, but also relevant links to some of these places for you to go in and access all of those. So I'm going to go through a couple of next steps here, because I can see a couple of other questions around how do I get access, when can I start, and so on and so on. This as of this afternoon, or after this session, we'll start inviting you all in and sending you invites through to those people that have provided us with the information around your super users. So thank you very much for those that have clicked on that link to be able to register your super users. We can include that form link in the follow-up email for anyone who may have forgotten to do that, or ran out of time, or it wasn't clear, but we'll include that so we can include you in the invite process. But that will happen as of today. We'll start sending those out from this afternoon, and getting the right people into your organisation. Once you're in, familiarise yourself with the portal, and invite other users within your organisation. So just talking through, as you invite people in, you'll assign them a user type. So it's very important to make sure you get the right people at the right user type. So our super users, they can see everything and do everything in terms of inviting people in and managing your accounts. We don't need to provide those invites. It's all around you and what's important for your organization and connecting your staff and teams in. The leadership level can do everything except invite and manage your users. So they can see all of the assessments, the plans, the resources, the club reports and organisation reports. Whereas the staff can see at staff level, they see only the resources and the club reports. So we've gone with a pretty lean user type access level there. If you find that it's not working for you and there are gaps, there is ways to get us feedback either in system through the help function there, or you'll be able to email us directly and we can talk through what that looks like and how that gets applied. The reason we've done that is we're pretty sure that not everyone wants all of their staff teams to see their organisation assessments and plans. So if there's governance and finance and so on at organisation level, it's not necessarily relevant for all staff to be able to see those things. So just go through that and see what's there. Once you're in there, liaise with us to see if there's any issues with your accounts, any data updates that might need to be done, any customization that you might like, or any training and workshops as a team. If you'd like to dig in a little bit more around some of the functionality, we're happy to come into any of those team and training workshops as well. Once you're in though, you can start with your own capability assessments. So the sports governance standards assessment will be launched in April. I think it's been set as the 5th of April. I'll double check that. But also in the follow-up session around this SGS, you'll hear the exact launch date for that. So make sure you've registered for that if it's relevant for you. The finance module is currently in place for assessment and plan building, which is terrific. So you can monitor and track your plans as you go, and new modules are being released all the time. And then also the follow-up part around supporting your club network. You can review your club data, consider how you would engage and encourage your clubs to sign up and activate, and then work with your state and local government partners to support your network and your own development at the same time. Consider any additional resources that you'd like your clubs to get access through game plan. And so if you're wondering how do you get your resources out to your clubs in a consolidated way, we can support that and filter them down specifically to your state and your sport. And we can get all of those things happening and in place for you really quickly. So they're the key next steps. I'm just going to go live into the system for a second and just show you a couple of other things that have been updated since I've been able to pull these slides together, and I'll answer some of the questions at the same time. So here you can see we've got an account called Test SSO. These are the tabs that you'll see. To manage your users, you click on your name, My Organisation Users. We'll send the instructions for this. And then very simply add a user and complete the details in here, including the user type. Once you've submitted that, wait until you get a confirmation email. There'll be an email to say that has been sent. Let the system run its process before you invite the next user in, and you'll be good to go there. The assessments, what you will see, you're going to see the finance assessment. So that is all there. The finance module is there. You'll also see a specific development module for the Play Our Way grants program. So we've worked recently with the Department of Health, and the Play Our Way guidelines that are out there includes reference to this module. So if any of you or your clubs or partners are thinking of applying for the Play Our Way grant, there's a $200 million fund there available to help the development of women and girls participation. And please make sure you come in and have a look and complete that module as well. And then as an example, there's a state-specific module functionality that we've been able to build, and across in Western Australia, they've been completing their Western Australian Sport Census in there, which is part of their annual reporting cycles around participation and coaches and officials and board members and makeup and so on. In the future, some of that's going to be captured in the SGS survey, so we'll already have some of that information, and some of it might be captured in other ways as well. But that functionality is there, and from time to time, if the Office of Sport wanted to explore that, they would certainly communicate with you all to let you know that that is there. Your plans, once you've built them, again, you'll see them in that table, so you can come back and keep them there. Resources, and just to showcase the difference of organisation resources, and then you can click on here and see all the club resources, and it takes you through to all of those, and then your reports. Click on your club reports, and once you've completed some modules and we release those org reports, you'll be able to see those and analyse your own there. I think I'm a Taekwondo club in WA, so there's only one sport over there, one club that's registered over there. But you would see if you've got 36 clubs, you'll see the data for all 36, and you can click through these tabs to see that information. I'm just going to pause for a second, check the questions. So how do we access the portal? David, you'll get a link that'll be, so everyone will receive a link from the system inviting you to come in. Just come in and follow that link. You'll verify yourselves in the system, and then you'll be in. If you find that there is anything wrong with your access, we'll give you an email address, but gameplanhelp@ausport.gov.au. We'll put that in the emails. That's the one to come through if you've got any technical issues. So just to reiterate, gameplanhelp@ausport.gov.au. Carla, is there a bottom-up data from clubs and top-down from NSO? And what value will SSO provide for your clubs? Or what information are we anticipating from SSO data? So to give you an example, this is the kind of information you'll see from the club. So the bottom-up value is there. From an SSO perspective, the two elements are around how you are working on your own organisation capability, how you're then working on a collaborative governance style approach to building your capability with your national body, as well as with the Office of Sport. And then how you're able to then translate any of those successes down to clubs. But that information, the reports are your reports. They're actually able to provide you with the insights that you need, and to be able to do that, as well as connect some of that through to the Office of Sport as part of not only your reporting requirements and the requirements that you have to follow through on your funding, but also how do they help and support you. So yeah. Carl, if that's answered your question, perfect. But if not, stick your hand up and we'll dig into that a little bit if we need to. Maria and Rebecca, hopefully I've provided you the insights for that one. You'll start using as soon as you get the link, and it'll come through in an email. If you try to go in there before that email, you won't be attached to your organisation. So give us a second to be able to send those invites out for you. Jeffrey's supplied the form. So if you again need to put in your super users, that form is in the chat. Please get that in there. Maria, how frequently envisaging to release new SSO modules? There may be one or two that come out in the next few months. Right now, there's a lot of work being done in those strategies. There were specific organisation capability frameworks in participation and performance strategies. They're currently being pulled out to be then built into strategies at, modules, not built into strategies, built into modules at NSO and SSO level. So towards the end of the year, you'll see more modules appear, but there'll be a couple between now and then, subject to those being ready. But we're not anticipating that you go and sit there and plug away, the same as we don't expect the clubs to sit there and plug away at 12 modules all at the same time. We understand that's not effective. We plan on staging those releases out for you so that we can manage that. Julie, there is no maximum number of people who can be on the system. You can put we encourage you to get all of your staff on there, because then it becomes common language and everyone's got access to the right kind of data for them. So please make sure that you're giving them the right kind of user type access in there to be able to step forward. Hamish done a great job and put gameplanhelp@ausport.gov.au in the chat. If you do need that, just copy that email address out. And Maria, for any participation programs outside of the clubs, that's perfectly fine as well. So there might be some specific modules and things like that you might want to do, or the Office of Sport might want to build for organisations that are doing that. And similarly, where you've got organisations that might run in a unitary type model or a one management model, where NSO is essentially driven then through. There might be some state specific contacts that lead the club development in there. But again, we know that some of that program delivery and things like that is slightly different as well. So we'll keep working through any of those specific examples. So we know that there are sports that do run in a one management model, sailing and cycling and those sorts of sports as examples. So those sorts of things we can continue to work on, but we'll then work on the reporting and what the information is required from the Office of Sport to be able to help support that and make sure that that's there. Rebecca, this one might be for you. Andrew, I'm going to bring you into some of our Q&A here now. So Office of Sport, is there an opportunity to align the Office of Children Guardian and the Child Safe Standards modules within this platform so it's all in one place and front and centre?
Question, Rebecca. Look, I think it is, and I guess you also, I think, Steve, there's some SEER safeguarding things in there too. What we're really trying to do, Rebecca, we know there's a lot of stuff around about child safe, but I think it's certainly got the potential. We've developed a lot of child safe sports specific resources with Office of Children's Guardian, which is embedded on their website. But I can certainly, and I think maybe it's what Steve was saying before, we could potentially have some links through what we do. But it is a very good question, actually. We need to look at that definitely.
So system-wise, yes, we can build that and have that in there. The safeguarding module in the club environment's been built by Sport Integrity Australia, and they've taken into account the peculiarities across jurisdictions as well. I call them peculiarities. I'm in Victoria, and we have an extra standard that we live by down here. So yes, being able to incorporate that at club level. We are working with Sport Integrity Australia around their sports continuous improvement program when it comes to safeguarding as well. So that will line from July onwards. But if there's any gaps and anything that we would need to be able to have you align completely to the Office of Children Guardian, we can work together around addressing that and catering for that. Great question. Tracy, 700 clubs. How long do you have to get all of them to register their details on Game Plan? The timeline is an open-ended timeline when it comes to that. We can work with you directly around how we go about your club acquisitions and get those moving, but utilising some of our templated marketing support assets and tools, as well as how you might go out and reach out to some of those clubs. We're here to be able to help and support that. So by all means, after today, have a think about how you would go about that and what that would look like for you as a sport. And then anything that we can do to help you with that, just come back and connect with us. And we've got a couple of options where we can support some of that. We can do some workshops with clubs, either online or whatever it may be. But we'll look to help fast track that where we can as well. Yeah.
Steve, can I just jump into Tracy from Office of Sport? We're not saying you need to sign your clubs up. So from which we encourage you. I think it could give you great data. So we just want New South Wales Rugby League and all of the SSOs to sign up to do the sport governance standards assessment, which is part of every state and territory. Will be doing that now, and I guess we're just saying, like Steve's saying, it's got so much more potential for you in capability building and things like that. But yeah, our requirement, I guess, if you want to talk about requirements, is for the SSOs to sign up and do the sports governance standards module.
Yeah. So that's the part that is definitely required and to be completed before 30 June. Is that right, Andrew? Is that the cutoff date?
I think we're going to say 1st of June, Steve, depending on when it's released. Yeah, but we're looking at 1st of June, I think.
My apologies. 1st of June, I gave you an extra month and I shouldn't have.
That's fine. We'll see how
But that is
going.
important. So again, just to refresh, just to the SGS server information session that's coming up in a few weeks' time, that'll give you all the insights on how to prepare to complete that. You'll already have access into game plan, and if then you'll have familiarities for when that's released. Get that done. Once you're in there and you're starting to see some of that, you'll see the value in getting some of your clubs and more of your clubs. But we can go through that. The other part is if you're a sport that's actively working with local government, and we know that local government plays a really significant role in supporting sport, in both investment in infrastructure and facilities, but also in supporting local clubs. They're getting the same information that you are. So they are aware that this is freely available to them, and gives them the local insights. And that's where the support for your clubs can increase as you start to work with them and they become an active stakeholder with the same data that you have in supporting the delivery of your sport at local level. Maria, are we considering the sport have their own national integrity frameworks and how that would work for continuous improvement? That's a question for Sia, but I'm happy to take that one on board, and maybe we can discuss and connect you in with Sia around that. But yes, in the most part, we are. The module's being developed specifically by Sia, but yep, I'll follow that up and I'm going to flag that with them for sure. And similarly, as you mentioned, Elizabeth, there are sports federations, sports communities. Will they all come on board? And also News Blues, all providing various webinars, etc., especially with links to training modules to save duplication. That is our goal. Where we possibly can, we're looking to reduce duplication in every possible way that we can. There are always going to be other providers, and most of them are like paid providers that are offering webinars and so on. We're happy to work with them in getting them into game plan and being able to familiarize all of that. For some of them, it's a commercial business model, so they might have a slightly different view. But what we've developed for the game plan is for the sector. It's kind of, I referred to it once as being the system for the system. It's totally yours and free, and we continue to invest and develop the program and platform to be able to service the sector in the best possible way and connect our stakeholders now with the spread of that data and information to support you all.
Steve, maybe I'll just add for Elizabeth and everyone. So we've got a group of state territory government, similar to Office of Sport, that works with Steve and the Commission on governance and things like game plan, but also the sports feds. We meet with them together. So I think, yeah, like Steve said, there's a lot of goodwill, I think, to try and reduce duplication and make as much alignment as possible.
There's nothing worse than everyone trying to do the same thing and pretend we're recreating the wheel every time, or asking questions in the same sorts of questions in multiple ways, trying to get access to these things. So our view and the game plan and ASC's view is let's help streamline that and reduce the burden where we can by creating a common data set that can be utilised. There are some other things that are in train around how we incorporate some of that sort of participation and performance type based reporting and where you log those. And the WA census example that I gave you is giving the WA government the reporting that they need for the annual basis of funding acquittal and so on. So those sorts of things is able to then support that, and we'll continue to work with the team at Office of Sport in finding ways to create efficiencies. Especially now that you'll all be on, every sport all in New South Wales will be on in game plan, and it just creates that opportunity to identify the efficiencies and deliver them to you as soon as we possibly can.
Steve, can I ask you one?
Of course you can.
So to me, the power of game plan 2 is the technology. So I noticed in each of the modules, you've got something that says progress to plan. So am I right? So when you do these, an SSO could do a plan about governance or whatever it is, but then it's there on the system and it's not static, and you can go into it and track and do all sorts of things with it.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, is there's no point doing an assessment for assessment's sake. When you identify the opportunities to build on things through those results. All of that progress to plan is in the system. So really simply able to go in, build some really simple action and activity-based plans, and then come in and track those. They can be done and then tracked throughout the year. And then each year, as you go through your annual SGS cycle, or you might have a different cycle for some of the other modules, you might do them every second year or whatever it may be. Each time you do that, you would go through, deliver your plan, as many of those activities as you possibly can, and resourced and had the capacity to deliver on before you take your next assessment. So then when you do that, hopefully you're then seeing where the impact of that is and an improvement in your results in those areas where you were able to deliver those actions, all tracked in game plan. But at the same time, you're able to extract it. You're able to export them into PDFs and get that information out and share that with your board or your other stakeholders, or include the information in reports. It's all there for you. And we're able to then get that out into the hands of the people who need it. Absolutely. Conscious of time, we've got 60 seconds. I reckon if there's no final questions.
I might just jump in and say thank you very much, Steve, for the presentation. I think from the Office of Sports, Steve said the two magic words for us, which are about alignment and integration. And I think, you know, there are a lot of changes coming up, I guess. So for us with OSP, we've got new funding. We're looking at new categorization, new reporting, and I guess this, to have a platform which everyone's on, NSOs, SSOs, clubs, this does provide the platform for that. So yeah, it's very exciting. So we'll get people to come to the next webinar. Did I see Mia though? Did you have your hand up, Mia? Right. So, Steve, I might say thank you very much. I might go back to just sharing my screen for people if you want to have a look at this. Is that working?
Not yet, mate.
Oh.
Yep.
No. No, I was going to share the screen with the. No, I don't think so. I was going to put the key dates up again, but it's not working.
Yep.
But we will send everybody, Jeff, won't we, the presentation
we will.
and some follow-up.
Andrew, I think Mia might be able to ask her question.
Oh,
Mia,
yeah.
did you? I've just unmuted you. Mia, can you just turn your mic on?
Yeah, I was just going to ask around that safeguarding question from earlier about whether we can align with OCG's resources. There's also a safeguarding assessment for New South Wales. So is that the type of thing that could be put into game plan? So the self-assessment tool for New South Wales specific, could that be part of this potential?
It could be. Absolutely. I don't know the makeup of that and who's currently delivering on that one, but the conversation is there ready to be had at any point in time. So that's the kind of thing that we do have the capability to do and incorporate into game plan. So again, getting it into a single platform, create the efficiencies where we can, sort of single point to go to for a lot of these things is kind of where we see the opportunity here. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you.
Nice.
All right.
Well, Andrew, just to wrap up, if I could, just to let everyone know that the session has been recorded. The link and Steve's presentation will go out in an email, I hope before the end of this week. Also, we will identify with Steve the SSOs that haven't registered their super users yet, that we can reach out and encourage you to do that as soon as possible, because unless you're registered as super users within game plan, you won't be able to access the sport governance standard module. And just the invitation for that presentation for the sport governance standards information session went out yesterday. So if you haven't received it, please send me an email direct or send an email to our sector capability unit. But Andrew, I think that you'd echo my thoughts to give Steve a big vote of thanks.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Steve. We've been working on this for quite some time. A lot more work to do, Steve. But we look forward to continuing our excellent partnership. Thank you so much.